Welcome to the NFL Power Rankings. Yes, that's correct. The NFL Power Rankings. I'm your only source of NFL Power Rankings from here on out. From now on, I will be the only source. I also do some NBA ones, but not right now. So let's get into the preseason or kind of pre-preseason. We've only had a couple games and I haven't watched them because I don't care about preseason football. But we've got the top 10 power rankings. 11 through 32 will be listed in a comment. And let's just get right into the top 10 with our number 10 team, which is the Houston Texans. So the reason I put this team over other teams that did not make the top 10, which there was a really hard group from like 14 to 9 that was just really hard to decipher and decide who to put in. I ended up putting the Texans in over teams like the Detroit Lions, like the Green Bay Packers, like the Atlanta Falcons, and like the Seattle Seahawks. Like those teams. Those teams are very good, but I see issues and I kind of doubt them for different reasons. But the problem with the Houston Texans is Tank Dell's not there, and you might worry about a little bit of offensive inconsistency, which I just think is the smallest problem out of all those other teams because I think that with the new OC, CJ Stroud will bounce back, and I think he'll have a resurgence from that sophomore slump. And I heard he's going to have more control at the line now, and I think that that'll do him good. He'll be able to make the right reads, call out protections, not just stick to the same plays that he was having to do with his old OC. And I think they have more pieces. I think they've revamped. They obviously got rid of Laramie Tunsil on that offensive line, but they filled him with Ariante Ursary, and he was someone I liked coming out of the draft. He's just a huge mass of a man. And I think their new additions like Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, and maybe Nick Chubb in a RB2 situation can really help that team. And then I'm not going to worry about the D'Amico Ryan's defense either. I know CJ Gardner Johnson got injured, but if there's anything I'm going to trust about a D'Amico Ryan's team, it is that defense. And at the end of the day, I just think CJ Stroud's a great quarterback, and I think that he will be able to deliver the offense through any adversity that they have. And they have an easy division, and I'm going to trust their defense. So for that reason, Houston Texans are at number 10. And at number 9, we have the Minnesota Vikings. The reason I put them at number 1 in their division over the Packers and Lions is because I just think this team is the most built to win out of every single team in their division. The only question is the quarterback and JJ McCarthy in that spot, but we'll get to that in a second. But other than that, they really bolstered their offensive line. They added guys like Donovan Jackson and Will Freeze this offseason. They have the best wide receiver in the league in Justin Jefferson. They have a great number 2 in Jordan Addison. They have Aaron Jones at the running back spot and Jordan Mason to back him up, who's a really good RB2. They have TJ Hawkinson, who's one of the best tight ends in the league, and that offense is just really complete. And on that defensive side, they have Brian Flores, who's just one of the best defensive coordinators in the game, a guy who turned that Vikings defense from one of the worst in the league to one of the best. And I think they have some good pieces on that defense as well. They've got a really good defensive line that rushes the quarterback supremely well. And I just think that this is a team that, with Sam Darnold at the helm, went 14-3 last year. And if JJ McCarthy, I think, is just not a net negative, I think this team can be even better. Maybe the record won't show it, but I think this can be one of the more competitive teams in the league. But the reason they're so low is because JJ McCarthy, a guy who hasn't played a single game in his career, came out of college as more of a raw prospect. Well, in a way, he didn't throw it a lot at Michigan. When he did, he looked polished, but he just didn't really have the volume. So I'll be interested to see how that works. But if anybody's going to help a rookie quarterback succeed, it's going to be Kevin O'Connell, who's helped guys like Kirk Cousins flourish and Sam Darnold, more notably, flourish. And even Joshua Dobbs, who had a really good stretch there. I mean, if anyone's going to do it, it is Kevin O'Connell. And I trust this Vikings team to be at least competitive and win the division this year. And at number 8, We got one of the teams who should have one of the highest flying offenses in the league this year. That is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a team that already had an elite group of skill group players, just adds on to it this offseason. They retained Chris Godwin. They have Mike Evans still. They drafted in the first round, at the shock of everyone, including me, Emeka Ibuka out of Ohio State. And they still got the kid they drafted out of Washington last year, too. And then they got Bucky Irving, who's possibly going to flourish into one of the top 5 running backs in the league this year. And I think he already is a top 10 running back. And they just have Cade Otton, sorry. He's one of the best tight ends, not one of the best tight ends in the league, sorry. He's probably floating around that number 10. He's just a serviceable option. Baker Mayfield's one of the best gunslingers in the game. They have a solid offensive line with one of the best tackles in the league in Tristan Wirfs. And I think that they can just add on to what they did last year, which was go to the playoffs. They lost in the wild card, but that was to a really good Washington Commanders team who's coming up later in this list. And by the end of the year, they looked like one of the best. And I think if they played someone else in the first round, it's possible that they make it to the conference championship or at least just have one win in the playoffs. And at number 7, this may come as a bit of a surprise to some, but I'm a big believer in this team. In second-year quarterback Bo Nix, the Denver Broncos. That's right. They're up at number 7. I think this is a team where they didn't have the best offensive pieces last year, at least skills group players. They really had Cortland Sutton, and that's it. And then they're relying on other guys like, Javonte Williams to produce. Not the best skill group, and they still made it to the playoffs as a number 7 seed. But now they add in guys like Evan Ingram. They add RJ Harvey in the draft. They add Tim Patrick. They add guys who can be solid contributors. And with more Bo Nix progression and Sean Payton in that offense, I think they can reasonably be a top 10 offense, even if they don't have the skill players on paper that make it look like they can. And then that defense might be one of the best in the league. They poach like half the 49ers defense this offseason. They still have the defense player of the year in Patrick Surtain, and they're just a very solid group. And I just think that under Sean Payton and with the potential to be top 10 in offense and defense this year, I think that they can reasonably be in this spot at number 7 and maybe make a deep run in the playoffs. And next up at number 6, dependent on if Terry McLaurin signs, we have the Washington Commanders. This is a team that made it to the NFC Championship last year, has a second-year quarterback who's going to improve from his rookie year, where he was still elite and one of the top 7, 8 guys in the league. And this is a team who just keeps adding on players. They added Laramie Tunsil in the offseason. They added Deebo Samuel. They drafted guys like Trey Amos and Josh Connolly for offensive line depth. They brought in Von Miller, who's old but can still contribute to a team in a limited role. Sorry about that. But this is a team where, as long as Terry McLaurin resigns, which I think he will, because this team has no other options, because you're in this win now situation with your rookie quarterback or second year quarterback on his rookie deal, and you really got to capitalize on that. And I think they've made all the efforts to do that, and they brought back Cliff Kingsbury, who did a remarkable job last year as their OC. And I think if this team does everything right, they'll just continue to build on that culture. It's very reasonable that they make it back to the NFC Championship or even the Super Bowl. And up next at number 5, we have a little bit of a biased pick, but my favorite team, the LA Rams. This is a team where they almost beat the Super Bowl winners in the Philadelphia Eagles last year, and they've just added on. They added Davante Adams to that offense. They drafted guys like Ferguson to be their tight end who can contribute in a good role. They brought in Jarquez Hunter, who's going to be a good depth running back. They brought in guys like Chris Paul, who can be a starting level linebacker. They really bolstered that defense, and they have the best front 7 in the NFL other than maybe the Philadelphia Eagles. I truly believe that. I think guys like Jared Verse and Byron Young and Kobe Turner and Braden Fisk and Josiah Stewart, who they drafted in the draft. And then you still got guys like Chris Paul at the linebacker spot. You have Cam Kinchins. You got Kello Witherspoon. You got Darius Williams. You have a ton of guys that I believe in on that defense. And this is a team where if Stafford is healthy, this offense will hum. And I think that best case scenario, they could be a potential Super Bowl team. And I truly do believe that in an unbiased way. But at number 4, I have the Buffalo Bills. This is going to be a short explanation. They may not have a running back. James Cook might not sign. They might not have a great defense. They might not have great skill position players. But they have Josh Allen. And at the end of the day, say what you want about his playoff record. I think he performs when it matters the most. He just doesn't always have the greatest team around him. And I think if just a couple things break right for the Bills, they'll be right in Super Bowl contention. And I really do think that they can do that. I struggled putting them below the Ravens, but I just think they're a less complete team. And at number 3, I got the Baltimore Ravens. The reason I got this is because if you have an MVP quarterback, you can win anything. But also, the fact that they have Derrick Henry, someone who can be a potential 2,000-yard rusher. They added DeAndre Hopkins this offseason. I don't expect him to do too much, but I think when you put him with Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers, and Mark Andrews, he can probably do something and contribute in a good role. They're one of the most solid offensive lines in the league with guys like Ronnie Stanley and Linderbaum. They've got a ton of good guys on that offensive line. But the real scary part of this team, to me, is that secondary, which was one of their weakest aspects last year and the year before. And this is a secondary that has Kyle Hamilton, recently drafted Malachi Starks. They got Jair Alexander from the Packers. They have, what's his name? Marlon Humphrey, sorry. And they also have Nate Wiggins. So, I mean, just a very, very solid secondary. And they have one of the best defensive players in the game in linebacker Roquan Smith. So they have a good defense and one of the most electric offenses in the league. And I think that should lead to success. So that's why I got them at 3, but I just can't put them above these next 2 teams. And at number 2, I have to go with Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think they got that much better this offseason. They drafted the tackle out of Ohio State, and they didn't do too much else. But it's the Chiefs. Until I see them not make the Super Bowl or not be good anymore, I can't put them above teams like the Ravens or the Bills, who they have constantly beaten in the playoffs over and over. I need to see something change before I'm willing to put one of those teams above the Chiefs. So, for that reason, they still have one of the best quarterbacks of all time in Patrick Mahomes. I just trust him more. So, I think they have to be above those other 2 teams. But they're still below the team that they lost to in the Super Bowl, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a team that just got better in the offseason. They kept 10 out of their 11 starters on offense. They lost the Mekhi Becton, the guard that was previously on the Jets, who's now on the Chargers. But they had a guy who's coming from within, and I think he's going to do good. That's not what I'm worried about, the offense. And I'm not worried about the defense either, because they have the best front 7 in the league. They just added Jahad Campbell. And in that secondary, they have Cooper DeJean. They have Kenyon Mitchell. They have a great safety duo as well. And this is just a team that, until I'm proven wrong, they're the best team in the league because they have a good quarterback. They showed that they can do it last year. They have one of the most potent offenses in the league and one of the best defenses. This is a team that could be top 5 in offense and defense. And they might just have the best offensive player in the league, potentially, in Saquon Barkley. So, there you go, folks. There's my top 10 power rankings. Hope you enjoyed. From now on, I'm going to try to do one NFL and one NBA upload a week. So, we'll see how that goes. And I'll see you later. Peace out.